consistency is hard. It's hard to be consistent when you're not feeling creative or motivated. It's difficult to do something when you're uninspired and feeling like an imposter. Hey there, besties. Welcome to our cozy corner of the podcasting world. Thank you for pressing play and spending some time with me here on Share a Latte. I'm Sukree, your virtual coffee bestie, podcast orchestrator, master storyteller, and your caffeinated host. Picture us in a cozy cafe with the rich scent of freshly brewed coffee as we embark on a journey filled with inspiration. In each episode, remarkable women share their tales of overcoming life's hurdles, offering a comforting embrace for your spirit. These narratives serve as a reminder that resilience and unwavering determination pave the way to success. Join me each week for conversations that will stir your mind, warm your heart, and you'll unearthly own your own ability to transform challenges into remarkable strengths. The Share a Latte podcast sprinkles hope, courage, and the belief that you can not only handle life, but thrive throughout your day. All right, besties, let's embrace those tales of triumphs and get ready for another episode of Share a Latte. Hey there, latte and podcast lovers. Thanks for pressing play and joining me here as we sip virtual lattes while exploring inspiring stories of women who've overcome life's challenges. I'm your host, Sukree, serving up not just coffee, but a generous pour of life's wisdoms as I share my life's journey, hoping that my stories resonate with yours. So let's take a second and recognize that I haven't published an episode in a couple of weeks. I have been horrible about making episodes for Share a Latte, something that I used to love. With the shorter episodes, which we here call Pours of Wisdom, that are usually published on Thursday mornings, they're now getting published on Monday. And this episode in particular is about 2 weeks late. When I started working on Share a Latte, I was determined to publish one long episode with an amazing guest each Monday and a shorter episode on Thursdays. I'm a podcast producer, a master storyteller, and I was a cheerleader for female creators when it came to being consistent with their podcast. I knew I totally had this. As much as I love producing the Share a Latte episodes every week, it became very clear in January that I was struggling with content and consistency, something that many of my clients know all too well. I stopped taking time out of my schedule to plan out content. I stopped connecting with amazing potential guests. I slowly started backing away from what I loved about producing this podcast every single week. Although there's probably many reasons as to why I did, I know that one of the main reasons was my lack of motivation tied to my mental health state. When I had launched Share a Latte, I had recruited some help, mostly because my business was slowly taking off and I needed to give it my attention, and I was using this platform to help expand. This would allow me to not look at the download numbers or stress about vanity metrics, which is something I preach a lot to my female creators when we're working on their podcast. Something else that I mention to my podcasters is that consistency is queen in having this platform. And as we know, consistency is hard. It's hard to be consistent when you're not feeling creative or motivated. It's difficult to do something when you're uninspired and feeling like an imposter. It's hard to know that you have to do something, but you're more comfortable to reverting back into your old ways. In this episode, I'm going to share with you how I fell off the consistency wagon and returned to old habits, as well as how I got myself back into setting myself up for success. Around the time that I had published an episode with Jen Green, I'd noticed I was starting to feel a lack of joy. I didn't want to spend hours laying out the next 4 months of podcasting content. The idea of emailing back and forth with potential guests sounded exhausting. How had that been? That was a process that I loved. I'd spent 2 years researching and getting excited in this podcast launch, and now every single week I was resenting it more. Within a matter of days, I was withdrawing completely. I sat in my therapy sessions and told my therapist how much I lacked the joy and everything. My life, this podcast, hanging out with friends, all of it. All of it didn't bring me any form of joy. And I couldn't understand why. She said to me, "Have you noticed a pattern in January and February of each year? When we spoke last year, January and February were your hardest months mentally. We had more sessions together this time last year than any other month all year long." I had to take a step back. Was she right? Of course, after that session, I looked into my therapy expenses. She was right. In 2023, January and February, I had spent almost 1/3 of my overall therapy money all year. Was it the weather? Was it the post-Christmas feelings? The lack of motivation? Had I been experiencing seasonal depression and never really truly noticed it? Not to get more into my mental health, because that might be an episode for another time, I did take time to investigate where my head was at this time last year. I booked an additional session with my therapist to take a deeper dive. I took time to learn why this time of year was leaving me unmotivated and uninspired. You can ignore the symptoms and slow down and move on, or you can take a deep dive and really learn about yourself. And I wanted to take that deep dive and learn more about myself, because I didn't want to be sitting here in 2025 in January and February feeling the same way. There is a root cause as to why you feel the way you do. I knew that the lack of joy was coming from somewhere deep down, and I was ready to face the demon in the basement. So for me, step 1 meant investigating feelings and actions. It might have been comfortable to sit around and go back to my old ways, but what was really stopping me from obtaining that body at the gym that I wanted, practicing the craft that brought me so much joy? Knowledge is power, and when you know, it's easier to battle that consistency. So step 2 became a plan. I have a client who's a parenting coach, and she preaches on telling parents to plan out their day. This doesn't mean planning out every minute. More in the sense of you get up, you have breakfast, you brush your teeth, you grab lunch bags, and you head to school. Or this is how she preached it for her parenting clients. So I took this knowledge and slowly put it into practice. I would get up each morning, spend time with myself and my morning cup of coffee, followed by breakfast, reading, and journaling. Creating a routine was easier for me to follow, makes other areas of my life easier to execute. Planning this podcast every month is slowly becoming easier, and consistency is slowly becoming easier when your mind and body know what to expect. 3, I had to learn to give myself a lot of grace. Not everything is in our control, and not everything has to be planned out. You try your best, and when you can't punish yourself. Which ties up to step 4, getting it done. Something a coach once told me is that 80% done is better than not done at all. You got it done. It doesn't need to be perfect. Goodness knows that this podcast is nowhere near perfect, and nothing is. But when I get it done, and even though it's been inconsistent lately, and some episodes may not be my best, they still get published. So I give myself grace as long as I know I'm working on something better and doing something better and working towards my goal with slow incremental steps. So it's all good. Which means then I get to move into step 5, rewarding myself, which really is the true balance of having consistency in your life. Because everything needs a reward. Even if it's the small chocolate that you have at 3 p.m. because you went to the gym, or because you did take your vitamins in the morning, or you had a meal before your coffee. If you read Atomic Habits, James Clear breaks down the habit cycle, and reward is part of it. I've implemented a new reward system in my podcast production. I never had one before, and to be fair, I didn't really need one because I found joy in creating new content every week. But moving forward, every month I stay consistent with publishing an episode for Share Latte. I'll be taking myself on a solo date to a new restaurant. Because I'm a huge foodie, and food not only fuels my soul, but gets me excited. When I make the August and we publish 1 year of Share Latte, I'll be celebrating a weekend away at a cottage with family and friends. I have really learned to give my body, mind, and soul something to look forward to, something to celebrate. How was I preaching this to my clients about celebrating their big wins and small wins, but I wasn't doing this? And I really needed to start implementing that into my own life. So podcast production isn't easy, but consistency isn't easy. So let's wrap up our latte sipping session today, besties. And I want you to know that sharing these reflections with you has been a blend of vulnerability and strength, making the perfect cup of brewed coffee. Life, like coffee, has bitter moments. And I've come to realize that acknowledging these bitter notes is the first step towards becoming richer and having a more fulfilling experience. Besties, we're savoring these life lessons together, sip by sip. And as we're navigating the windy roads of creativity and consistency, remember, just as your morning cup of coffee holds the promise of each day, each effort towards overcoming the challenges in our creative pursuits hold the promise of growth and resilience. Embrace your own journey with warmth and understanding, just like you cradle that comforting morning mug in your hands. Continue to find joy in your endeavors, forgive yourself for imperfect moments, and raise a cup to all the small and big victories in your life. All right, besties, until our next coffee chat, may your lattes be strong, your wisdom be rich, and your creative endeavors be as bold as your favorite brew. I hope that this episode inspired you and you take bigger steps in creating that beautiful life that you've always wanted. If today's episode warmed your heart, please hit that subscribe button and stay with us for future journeys. If you enjoyed the chat today, your thoughts and feedback mean the world to me, and they'll help others discover the magic of Share Latte. Each story enriches our journey. Remember, you can turn trials into triumphs and scars into stars. Keep believing and keep chasing those beautiful dreams. This is Min taking her last sip from the Share Latte podcast, where life happens and coffee helps.